Okay, this is our lecture for June 30th on Chapter 5. And again, there's a lot of slides in this slide set, so I'll go through these relatively quickly. But it's about higher level thinking. And, probably the first thing I'd like to say about higher level thinking is that, this is why people will employ you one day. Okay? It is our educational careers up to this point have been largely centered around learning basic or foundation type of material. And, there's nothing to say that, basic knowledge is not important. It is important because that's basically supplying you, the raw information, the raw knowledge that you're going to need to go up to the next level, to go up to where you are comprehending the material so well that you can think critically and think at a much higher level. So, it's not to say that the foundational material is not important. It is, but really people will pay you one day for your ability to think and problem solve and be able to think maybe in new ways. All right? So anyway, let's see if we can get this going here. Maybe. There we go. So anyway, that's basically raising the bar, thinking at a higher level, so thinking in new ways, basically. Anyway. One of the things here I always find interesting, that it says more than 95% of professors think that the most important goal is to have students be able to think critically. So be able to, in some manner use foundational material and other concepts to construct that knowledge and be able to apply that knowledge in new ways. So anyway, this is basically where we're headed. We need basic knowledge, foundational material. We have to comprehend that, have good comprehension to move to the highest level. Okay? Now there are different forms that people will talk about for higher level thinking. One is what they call applied thinking. And applied thinking basically is putting the knowledge that you have into practice so that you can solve problems. This, in a way, you all know that I'm an engineer, and this, I guess, hopefully for an engineer, this might be what I'm good at, is that I can take, my knowledge of physics and my knowledge of math, and I'm able to apply that and solve, real world problems. Okay, so I think I'm fairly good at that. The next one is analytical thinking. And analytical thinking is basically being able to analyze concepts. And what that means basically is breaking it down, breaking the knowledge and the information, the data that you have down into its, underlying elements, its key parts. Okay, so you can take a picture and you can start breaking it down. You'll hear people talk about synthesis. And what synthesis means is it's sort of the opposite of analysis, and the fact that synthesis is not breaking down concepts and ideas, but it's actually building up these ideas and having the ability to integrate these into a larger system or a larger body of thought. Multidimensional thinking is taking multiple perspectives, multiple viewpoints, and being able to look at a problem from different perspectives. A lot of times when we have problems, a lot of people want to see things the same way instead of looking outside of their normal perspective and attacking a problem in a different manner. Inferential reasoning is basically making having the ability to make arguments. That's coming up with a conclusion that's supported by the facts. Okay, you'll hear people talk about balanced thinking, and this is, you know, being able to consider both sides of an argument, and, you know, the pro and the con of an argument, and be able to reason out solutions from that. And then finally, you get to maybe the two most important ones: critical thinking and then creative thinking. Critical thinking is evaluating how good arguments are, you know, how good conclusions or the points or the ideas that are making. Just listening to somebody give one side, I mean, that's in and of itself not very helpful unless you're able to think about that and actually make a judgment whether, you know, what somebody is telling you is, you know, possibly correct or incorrect, or someplace in between. Creative thinking is basically creating new thoughts, new thinking outside the box, attacking a problem from a completely different perspective. So, I mean, that's, you know, that might be the highest level of all. With creative thinking, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I always like to think of like Apple computers and the Apple products, you know. I mean, those people, you know, when you go back to the you know, even the Apple computer, but go more recently to the you know, iPhones, the iPods. And, you know, at some point in time, somebody had to think outside the box and say, hey, there will be a market for, you know, an MP3 player that's, you know, this big, this size. And then, you know, if there was an MP3 player that we could put into a phone, people would like to integrate that. And how about if we, you know, put a camera into a phone? There was somebody that thought about this, and that's, you know, that's being ultimately creative. I think we pretty well talked about applied thinking. That's sort of my example. This is a good one with analysis. Since we're talking about breaking things down, they like to liken it to that peeling of an onion. Okay. Synthesis, now, you know, we're thinking about building up ideas, connecting the information back together. You know, in this multidimensional thinking, again, we talked about different perspectives. Well, here could be the different perspectives in multidimensional thinking. A perspective of yourself, a perspective of place, time, and the culture. Okay? Think about it this way. You know, you hear a lot about global warming. You know, global warming could involve us personally, okay, because we have homes, we have to heat and air condition our homes. So how does this affect me as an individual? But you could think about global warming as an issue that goes beyond just your household, and it affects the country, it affects the hemisphere, it affects, you know, the world. You could think about it from the perspective of time. You know, hey, is global warming, if it is truly happening, what's the time frame that we're looking at? I mean, when does, you know, if there was a threat, I mean, are they talking about a threat in 5 years, 100 years, whatever? And when you listen to arguments, you know, and you go back in time, you know, people 35 years ago were talking about an ice age. Okay, so again, considering, you know, the perspective of time. And then you could think about culture too. You know, culture, we live in a highly technologically advanced culture, but, you know, other people do not, you know. So is it important for other countries to have, you know, brand new coal-burning power plants to raise their standard of living, and so on and so forth? So again, it's looking at a problem from more than just one small perspective. Inferential reasoning. You know, when you think about inferential reasoning, you're starting to make arguments by inferring something. So again, we'd like to be able to make an argument based on some sort of facts or some sort of logic. So one thing is empirical evidence, and empirical means what you are able to observe. Okay? The second one would be using consistent logic, using logic in a consistent thing. So again, you can use both of these to support an argument. These next few slides are really just slides that, how people make false judgments about, or false reasoning, okay? And you can hear people about being dogmatic, that they stubbornly cling to a viewpoint no matter what the evidence is. Selective perception, seeing the evidence only when it supports a position. A double standard, having two sets of standards. Wishful thinking, hasty generalization, reaching a conclusion prematurely based on just a limited number of experiences. Jumping to a conclusion, making a leap of logic that doesn't really seem correct. The one that you hear a lot of times in politics is the straw man argument, distorting an opponent's arguments and then attacking them for it. So you'll hear people say, well, this is blah, 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 and my opponent believes X, Y, Z. Well, the opponent doesn't believe X, Y, Z, but then they say they do, and then they attack them for it. Ad hominem means that you attack the person, not the argument or the judgment they're making. And red herring, you hear that used, and it's bringing up an irrelevant issue that, again, is distracting from the real issue. And then slippery slope, you hear that, using fear tactics that say, hey, if we do this, this is the first step towards, this utter decline. Okay? And then these other ones, you can read about these in the book. Balanced thinking, on this one, again, we said, carefully considering evidence. And again, there's two ways we can look at this. Adduction, which is supporting, you end up supporting with the evidence, or refutation, which is saying the argument is no good because the evidence opposes the argument. Okay? And then, again, you're supposed to be impartial when you try to do this. And, you can read about these. Okay, critical thinking. All right? Critical thinking, like we said at the beginning, highly, highly valued by professors. This is one of the things that they say they want their students to come out with. Similarly, industry likewise says this is what we want our students to have. All right, the ability to think and evaluate arguments, conclusions, ideas. All right, things that the 5 things that they give when they, when you're considering trying to think critically, and that is validity. That means truthfulness. Validity means we're searching for the truth. You should think about the morality of an argument or an idea. You should think about the aesthetics or the beauty. You should think about the usefulness. And you should think about the importance or the priority of this. Okay? Thinking critically versus thinking creatively. Okay? Critically is the ability to evaluate something, a conclusion, a concept, an idea. Creative, like I said, to me, this is like Apple. Starting out with Apple computers, and then the Macintosh, and then the iPods, and the iPhones, and the iPads, and all this. I mean, these are products that, again, they might have been the first people to ever think there was a market for these products. And if they weren't the first people to think about this, they were some of the first people to think about I guess bringing together all these technological advancements into like, let's say, an iPhone. I mean, so you have all these apps, you have a phone, you have basically a computer, you can check your email, you can play your music. That's really thinking outside the box, okay? So, and that's truly, anytime you're starting to combine 2 ideas, 4 ideas, 6 ideas. I mean, now you are starting to reach the height of, this higher level thinking, this creative thinking. Okay? And again, these are just some more bullet points, and you can see these in the thing. Brainstorming, again, you've heard that term. That's just problem solving. And it illustrates how creative and critical thinking sort of go together. Creativity sometimes just doesn't happen, but instead, a group of people can come together, hash out their ideas, reflect upon what people are saying, evaluate what people are saying, and try to move forward. Let's see. These are different things. When you're trying to think creatively, and using this, getting to this highest rung of knowledge, try to think about ideas that connect not only within a class, within reading and lecture and the other resources you have. Sometimes you might think of trying to link different classes. Like in engineering, we might try to link mathematical principles to what we're trying to do. When you're listening to a lecture or you're doing your homework, of course you're worried about the content, but also think about the process that this involves. I'm very, when I teach my engineering technology students, I'm very big in trying to think about things as a sort of a stepwise fashion, okay? Then think, step back and think about what you're doing. Step back and think, and challenge yourself as to, what you're doing and why you're doing it. So that's, self-questioning. Okay? And then the last one here is, if you're going to be creative, be experimental, think about things, don't be afraid. I mean, experiments, if we're in science and we're doing an experiment, we are not guaranteeing success 100% of the time. I mean, the new drugs that come out are the result of probably 90 failures that happened before it. So, the concept of, playing with ideas, coming up with new things, that's not always going to work out properly, but at least to consider them will move us one step further down the line. Okay? I like to say this, get mobile, and I'm a big believer in this. Sitting down at a desk trying to think in the same position for extended period of time, or even on a couch, does not really help. You hear some people say, "Hey, I'm going out for a walk to clear my head." Well, you know what? There's some truth about that, because you get the blood pumping, you get oxygen in your lungs, you just start to feel better. Get it down, write it down. I mean, sometimes you hear people, "Hey, we wake up in the middle of the night, I got this great thought, and I go back to bed and I lose it." Well, I don't know if that happens all the time, but carry something to record it with, whether that's pen, whether that's your phone, whatever. Think about things diversely. Talk to different people about your ideas. And even talk to people. If you're in one particular field within a company, you might talk to other people. Because again, if I'm bringing a new product to market, there might be a technological thing, but there also might be a marketing position with it. There might be a shipping position with it, and so on. And then we've talked about this before. You got to take a break. If you're coming to this brain freeze where you just can't think about stuff and it's just not getting you anywhere, we'll take a break. That's a little bit of relaxation sometimes help. And then if you're stuck, you might think about the problem in a new way. You know, go back to the earlier parts, the analysis, breaking it down, the synthesis, bringing it back up. I mean, maybe if you break a problem down and you synthesize it differently, maybe not with all the parts, maybe that helps. Okay? And then finally, be persistent. I mean, you be persistent, you have a problem, you're working on a solution, stay at it. Don't give up. Okay? You know, again, it's not like we always have a lightning bolt hit us and things are perfect and we have our answer. I mean, sometimes, you know, it just takes hard work. And then really, you know, again, I started off saying this is what people are going to employ you for, this higher level thinking, taking foundational material. In the world we live in, I mean, we just have so much data and so much information coming that we need people that are able to think at a higher level, okay? So anyway, that's the lecture for today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Please remember you have your quiz on Blackboard. That's on textbook chapters 1 through 4. And then you also have to do that My Power Learning. You have to go to that website. You're going to need the code on the inside cover of your textbook. You're going to have to answer the questions, print out the results they give you, and with that, you're going to have to do the worksheet. So print out the worksheet, fill it out. All right, and we'll see you July 7th. The first part of our June 30th class, which we are videoing and putting on YouTube, is really to go over what's due next week. As we typically do at the beginning of the class, we review our schedule. And one thing that we want to get straight is we got several items that are due next week, which is Monday, July 7th. The first thing that's going to be due is I have created a test or a quiz that is going to be taken online, and it is going to be due by class time on July 7th. So it will be available from Monday, June 30th until our class starts July 7th. Where you will find this quiz is under the Blackboard test button, and you can see right now it's sort of grayed out because it's not available yet, but you'll click this, and this quiz basically is over the first 4 chapters of our textbook. So again, you have done reflection papers or reflection statements on all the chapters so far, and so this is a quiz. It'll be like a multiple choice quiz, and it'll basically be over chapters 1 through 4. Okay, so anyway, you can review chapters 1 through 4 and then take the quiz. The second thing that is due is something that's called the My Power Learning Assessment. And this is an online assessment that is going to measure basically the type of learner that you are. Now, you will go into, you can get into this through the Assignments tab, and you can go through the Assignments folder, and if you scroll down here, you'll find this assignment, the My Power Learning link, okay? And it's basically to, like I say, assess the type of learner that you are, so you can really try to get the most out of your study experiences and your study habits and whatnot. What you're going to have to do, though, is you're going to have your book available, and on the front cover of your book, there will be the way that you can access the My Power Learning website. But the most important part on the inside front cover of your book is that you have an access code. All right? So you can get to this website by clicking the My Power Learning link right here, and that takes you to this website, and you're going to have to go ahead and enter that registration code. And then, as you get into it, it's going to ask you to put in an email and a password and things of that nature. But that's, that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. But you need to do that. Now, the second thing is when you get done with this assessment, it's going to ask you questions, and then it's going to give you sort of a printout of the type of learner you are. You'll see 3 bars there. It'll say my visual learning is 6.2 or whatever. It'll give you a rating, and it'll tell you a little bit about that. Print that output out, and then what you're going to do is you are going to finish this worksheet. So you got to have both of these things. You got to have the printout from the My Power Learning website after you answer the questions, and then you also have to answer the questions on this worksheet. Okay, I'm not sure this worksheet's going to come up, but if it does, I mean, it'll ask you about your, this assessment that you took, and if anything, surprised you about it and so on. It's not coming up here, but anyway, you got to go to the My Power Learning link. You got to have that access code on the front part of your book. You get into the website, you answer, I think there's 36 questions maybe that it asks you to answer, and then it's going to give you an assessment on your learning styles. You get the printout of that, print that part of it out, and then you will come down here, print out the worksheet, answer the questions, and you'll hand that in. So you got to take the Blackboard quiz that I have up on Blackboard. You got to do this My Power Learning assessment, print it out, and do the worksheet on it. And also, if you have your advisor appointment worksheet by next week, I'll give you some extra points on that. Okay? So those are the things that you have to do between Monday, June 30th and Monday, July 7th. Those things are due beginning of class on July 7th. So that's the first part of our lecture, is making sure you understand the assignment. The second part of our lecture will be about Chapter 5. So we're starting a new chapter. It's going to be Chapter 5, and that's going to be the second part. I'm going to stop the first part of this video just so I can upload it. It doesn't get to be too big of a file, but the Chapter 5 will be Part 2.